participation plan, but somehow I was so inconspicuous as a course director that I seemed to have avoided the problem. Arthur Carlin came in. Now, these were looking, in this period of time, as I mentioned, we were looking at wondering about what transmitters were present in synapses and how synapses work, and we were thinking about sort of using monotonic approaches to find the right organism, or we could ask a particular question about how some mechanism worked. Arthur Carlin, the Harvard group never liked biophysics much, but Arthur Carlin was a channel person, and he brought in biophysics. Bert Sackman came, and one had to bring in biophysics because of the patch binding. And so the course really took on a new tenor of asking very fundamental problems about the structure of membranes and structure of the receptors and how receptors work and that kind of issue. So you see the course moved, it changed. The Levitan and Kaczmarek came in. Kaczmarek is a pharmacologist from Yale, and Levitan is a biophysicist. But they started asking more complex questions. We started seeing a few questions about how things worked, but still a very kind of hard rock physics. The big change came when actually Andrew Mattis came as director of 1 year, and then he brought in Gary Banker, and Dan Madsen came. So now they were using biophysics to answer questions about brain slices, bigger questions. And Banker had these cultures that he had developed that we heard about in the lecture, where you can grow a single isolated neuron. And the point about that is that they don't have a lot of glial stuff around them, and you can ask questions about what's going on. You can observe things directly in them, as Steve so nicely took advantage of. And so in subtle ways, we were moving back towards more complex systems, and Faber and Lichtman clearly did that. And Steve Smith came in here, and another big revolution was doing light beam physiology, and this started up in a big way. And the development section and the structure section no longer made sense to be separate, and so they were combined into looking at all the dynamic, because you can look at dynamic things with light beams, asking very dynamic questions about, first about details, and finally bigger questions about things like synaptic competition and cellular development. And all of us are leaving after this year, and I'll bet you it's going to go more organismal. We'll see. But whatever it does, I have great confidence it's probably going to be right. And worthwhile come back and take a look at what's going on. It's going to be good. All right. Now I'd like to circle back to the Cambrian trip. And talk about the Kufler lab. The course really started as over in the back of the Lilly building when Steve Kufler, who was chairman of Neurobiology at Harvard, would bring his prospecs here to look them over, and he and Frischman, Potter, and John Nichols was there at the time and lecture to them and get them shaped up to begin their careers as postdocs at Harvard. And they developed a protocol, a series of lectures that was really reflected by John Nichols in John Nichols' textbook, which is still a very nice textbook. And now Steve at some point decided he had enough, and they went out to the West Coast for a while. And there was a strong tradition of biophysics at MBL. The voltage clamp had been developed here, and Edelman was part of that group. And they decided to try out teaching biophysics, which is a little narrow. Steve never liked biophysics that much. Didn't want to get pinned down to that. But they tried it out and decided it wasn't a real great thing to be doing. They needed a broader course because because of Steve, this concept of an integrated subject, neurobiology, was beginning to emerge. And so the first strange body form emerged in the form of John Dowling, George Pappas, Mike Bennett, Reese and Whitaker. Mike standing back there with the clock. And I got involved in the course because I went to Mike and I said, Mike, can I help George out? John Weiser and I helped George out. And he said, well, why don't you go talk to Kravitz? We're going to start up again anyway, and then we'll find some time to see him. I think this group, I went to their lectures, which is why I got involved here. John and I came and spent a summer writing a paper, review for physiological reviews, and I went back and read that paper recently, and every single idea we had in that paper, we've just spent our time working through. And recently, my work has gone back to those same issues. Special being here doing stuff. But so I came to their lectures, and again, I got the feeling of, Whitaker was doing isolating synaptic vesicles and measuring acetylcholine levels, and Rodolfo Linas was measuring what oral calcium had. The idea hadn't come together of really working together, but of working in different areas where you might combine a technique or two to ask a question. So this was kind of the fledgling beginning of this concept of neurobiology as a field. So this is really early post-Cambrian. And I'd like to then finally circle back to the Kufler lab. Steve Kufler died in 1980 at the age of 67. He came to Harvard Hopkins in the 50s, and he brought with him a remarkable group. He brought Hubel and Wiesel and Frischmann, Potter, and Kravitz. And even more remarkable, he went to the deans at Harvard and he said, I need 6 professorship slots. And somehow got them. And got these guys set up. And they asked him what he wanted to call this group, and he came up with the idea of neurobiology. And behind this was the idea, so this was really the seed of this whole idea here that's been playing out of getting these separate groups together. I mean, it seems obvious now, doesn't it? And what we're seeing now is how it's going to play out in terms of higher orders of organization in groups. The slide with the 20 people on it, that's a new level of organization compared to these more innocent days when we only had 1 or 2 people on your slide, if you had a slide at all. But Steve was very special in that he could pull off something like appointing 6 professors at Harvard at the same time. He worked in the lab until the very end of his life. And, I always found that very special and inspiring. The people who've been with him, I was never with him, but the people who've been with him wrote put together a book after he died. And I had a copy of it, somebody took it. Anybody has it, bring it back after you read it. Here's the original group. David Potter, Ken Kravitz, Torsten Wiesel, David Hubel, and Frischmann, and Steve himself. And Steve would, over the years, would maintain a lab here, and this shows him in his lab 3 years before he died, with 2 of his very special postdocs, Goju Yoshikami and Roger Stickold. And when we went to visit Steve in the lab, very often you'd find this picture. He'd be sitting there working away, and people would be milling around. And his last postdoc was this fellow off the wall. You know who this is? It's Terry Sejnowski, who's now doing some very different kind of work, beautiful work on theoretical work on neural nets. But he worked with Steve, and you remember now Steve had supported Hugo and Wiesel, so that he, besides his extraordinary skill in recognizing scientists and promoting them, and this particular skill at working in the lab, and Steve made some really basic discoveries on retinal physiology and lateral inhibition in the retina. He had this very broad understanding and interest in all levels of neuroscience. And so, Steve, the picture I showed you here was 3 years before he died, and Steve had bad diabetes, and what's always intrigued me is that I was here year-round that time and spent some good deal of time with him. It seemed to me I never heard him complain or say anything about being up late at night in the lab and everything, but he must have known he was ill. And he went swimming one day off against the beach. And he has a house down by the beach. He came back to his house and died in his sleep. So I think in many ways you can understand the neurobiology course and how it's gotten to be the way it is by this concept that Steve created and the people he brought into it, and how he got the thing started, and it's been playing out and growing and ever sensitive to current science and so forth. But if you go around the country, you'll find that every university has got people who emanated from this group. I don't want to imply that there weren't other major schools of neuroscience in the United States that worked, but this was one of the major ones. And if we trace my roots back, if we trace Jeff's roots back, it occurred to me that this probably explains why we were absolutely in sync about how to give a talk. Giving a talk reflects your basic ideas about what science is and how to do it. And, we all learn from it, inspired by this matter. So, in conclusion, then, I think the MBL has a unique skill at keeping up to date in science. I hope they'll maintain that skill of being there at the cutting edge, of being there as the ideas unfold. And so I think all of you should consider at least coming back now and then having a look, because it's always great to, you'll find that it's really rejuvenating to you and your ideas about your own life, your own work, to come back here and have a look. As far as the lessons from this for yourself, I think the point of the course is that, which is obvious, is that you learn to walk up to an evanescent wave microscope and use it. You learn that you can do that, and no sweat. It doesn't belong to some professor where you have to go ask and go up and sit down and do it. And you establish that state of mind. But I hope maybe what you've gotten from this quick run through of history is the idea that yeah, this is great, and but you don't just go and do that and write your big paper and sit back and wait for the world to come to you. It ain't going to come. You got to go in every day to the lab and do stuff and have new ideas and be ready to change, ready to move ahead as science moves ahead. So that's the end, and I've been told never to say thank you, but I can't help it now. Thank you very much.